We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, July 29th here in Seoul. I'm Song Min-jin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Cheska Dainha.
Happy Monday, everyone!
Happy Monday! And Yoon Sang-yeol.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. Now, as usual, we're going to start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending online. New mask, same task. That's how American actor Robert Downey Jr. describes his return to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Best known for his iconic role as Iron Man, Downey Jr. will be returning in the new Avengers movie, Avengers Doomsday, this time as a completely new character, Dr. Doom. The announcement was made during Marvel's presentation at San Diego Comic-Con on Sunday. Moving on, back here in Korea, after the monsoon rain subsided this month, it's now the heat that's taking a toll. With heatwave advisories issued for most parts of the country last week, the Ministry of the Interior and Safety has warned that we may experience unprecedented heat this year. According to the Korea Disease Control and Prevention Agency, out of the 889 cases of heat-related illness reported since the emergency monitoring system began on May 20th, nearly 30% occurred just between last Monday and Thursday. Finally, turning our attention to the Paris 2024 Summer Olympic Games, the International Olympic Committee has apologized to South Korea for mistakenly introducing the country as the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, the official name of North Korea, during Friday's opening ceremony. According to a statement on the IOC's official website on Sunday, President Thomas Bach spoke with South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol, sincerely apologizing for the error in the audio broadcast, which has been identified as human error. So here in the studio, Sang-yeol, could you tell us more about what happened during the opening ceremony and how the South Korean government responded after seeing the situation?
Yeah, so first of all, this year's Olympic opening ceremony was, should I say, iconic in many ways. So in 128 years of Olympic history, this was the first time that the national players entered through boat, and also this was the first time the opening ceremony was held outside instead of the indoor stadium.
Right.
The South Korean national team made a 48th entrance among other countries, but the introduction was made wrong, as you mentioned, as Democratic People's Republic of Korea, which is an official state name for North Korea. Obviously, many Koreans felt offended with this wrong introduction, and the IOC made an apology after the opening ceremony, but it only posted the apology on the Korean account of the X. And no apology was posted on the official English website or the English account of the IOC. So on last Saturday, Vice Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism Jang Mi-ran made a formal request to have a dialogue with the president of IOC, Thomas Bach, expressing concerns. So later on during the evening, President Yoon Suk-yeol and President Thomas Bach had a phone call for 10 minutes. President Yoon requested the IOC for an official apology of this matter and to prevent any recurrence of similar events in the future. To this, President Bach made a heartfelt apology and also emphasized that he and the IOC have no excuse whatsoever. The president also ensured that similar mistakes will not happen again.
Right, and ever since this mistakenly introducing the South Korean team was spotted during the opening ceremony, the news has been buzzing on the internet and media outlets all weekend, not only here in Korea, but around the world. So, Cheska, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on this mistake?
I mean, today I am representing one of the Korean citizens that watched the opening ceremony. So I must say I was hurt and a little bit disappointed because, yes, a mistake is a mistake, but Olympics is probably one of the most, if not the most global, festival where players come to not represent the team, but the country. So to be mispronounced, the country they represent also, I think, has a lot to do with national pride. And on top of that, I'm glad that they're trying to make some official apologies. However, I was a little bit disappointed that they only posted the official apology on the Korean social media account. Because as we all know, this is not just for the Korean audience, but the entire international global viewers.
Right.
So I was hoping that they would make a more prompt and fast apology on the more international social media accounts. And I am happy that they're posting it on the official website also, but I do hope that this mistake never happens again, because as we know, they also misspelled one of the players' name.
Right, the gold medal, the fencer of Team Korea who won the gold medal, Oh Sang-wook, right?
Yeah, so they're constantly making mistakes. So I do hope that as the Olympics proceeds, none of these happen again, because I'm proud to be Korean, and I hope we are represented properly in the international audience.
Definitely hope we never see such a mistake again. That was our news feed for this Monday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day by looking at the screen.
In South Korea, same-sex marriages are not legally recognized. Traditionally, in a deeply rooted Confucian society, many viewed same-sex relationships as abnormal. However, with shifting social perceptions, especially among the younger generation, a recent landmark ruling by the top court marks a significant step towards change, celebrated by supporters as a major milestone.
Right, so we're first going to talk in detail about this landmark Supreme Court ruling that has recognized some rights for same-sex couples. So, Cheska, could you walk us through this ruling and the case in general?
Yeah, absolutely. It was definitely monumental for South Korea in that this is probably one of the only and the very first legal recognition of the same-gender couple rights. And an important one for that matter, because it has to do with legal rights of national health insurance also. So let's take a look at the events that have transpired over the last 5 years. So back in 2019, Mr. So and Mr. Kim got married, and to clarify, this was a common law marriage, as same-sex marriage is not legalized here in South Korea. And when Mr. Kim wanted to register his husband as a dependent for national health insurance coverage, they were actually denied the rights due to their gender issue. So began the lawsuit in 2021, and their claim was at first denied in the first trial, but in the second trial, the court actually sided with the couple by saying, quote, it was an outright discrimination to not recognize common law marriage in same gender because it was recognized in the heterogender marriage. So finally this year, the Supreme Court actually ruled in favor of the ruling.
I see. Now, my question to you, Sang-hyuk, is why did the Supreme Court decide that same-sex couples are eligible for spousal coverage under national health insurance? What kind of legal grounds did the Supreme Court base its ruling on?
Yeah, sure. Before I explain about the legal grounds, let me first introduce the health insurance policy here in Korea. So I think we can break it down into two types. One being an employer-provided policyholder for those who go to companies, the regular or contract type workers, and the other being a locally provided policyholder for freelancers like me. So in general, if your spouse is an employer-provided policyholder, then you can also receive the spousal coverage benefit of the health insurance, which means the amount of health insurance fee is smaller than those who pay the locally provided policyholder. And believe me, if you want to pay as small amount as you want in terms of health insurance, please to get a job in companies, because I pay like 200,000 won a month because I'm one of those locally provided policyholders. So this social security system is legally basically to ensure every national's benefits regardless of one's gender. And as long as your spouse is an employer provided policyholder, you can get the spousal coverage benefit as well. However, the Korean Constitution does not recognize same-sex marriage yet, so which means that it contradicts with the purpose of social security system. So the legal ground of the recent decision was actually based on the fact that as long as the two homosexual couples are same in nature as that of the heterosexual couples, they shouldn't be discriminated against when it comes to acknowledging the right to have the spousal coverage benefit of health insurance.
Right, so this is the reason why the Supreme Court recognized spousal coverage for same-sex couples as well. Now, following this ruling 2 weeks ago, numerous international media outlets reported it as breaking news. So back to you, Cheska, how did this highlight this issue, and why are some outlets calling this as a monumental landmark ruling?
Yeah, I actually did a little bit of research because I was also curious too. And actually there were so many foreign media outlets that actually covered this issue, including AFP, New York Times, and even Amnesty International even quoted the title as historic victory, and the Time magazine called it, quote, landmark LGBTQ ruling.
Right.
And it most certainly is, especially not just in Korea, but as we know, in the Asian country, this could be seen as a monumental signal for moving forward in terms of the rights of LGBTQ. And with added comments about how this is the beginning to much more changes down the road, because our society is based on Confucius policies. Therefore, a lot of the rules and laws that have been instituted does not recognize same gender or homosexual in a lot of the rights. And for the legal right to be recognized in a Supreme Court ruling, I think it's definitely monumental.
Definitely. And talking about the way down the road, many are now wondering if this could be a step towards legalizing same-sex marriage in Korea, which our panelists mentioned are not legally recognized by law yet. So I want to ask you, Sang-Yeol, let's take a look at the status quo. How many countries around the world are actually legalizing or legally recognizing same-sex marriages?
Yeah, so as of July 18, when the decision was made, only 37 countries around the world consider homosexuality to be legal. The Netherlands was the first country to approve gay marriage in 2001,
Right.
Followed by the 16 EU member states. As for East Asian countries, Taiwan legislated gay marriage in 2019, but still many East Asian countries, including Korea, bans same-sex marriage due to their conservative social atmosphere.
Right. So as we're talking about how many countries are legally recognizing same-sex marriage, to learn about the legal status of this same-sex marriage around the world, we also asked our viewers if same-sex marriage is legal in their country and what they think about it. And here's what 3 of them said. If we look at the comments, MIMS says same-sex marriage has been legal here in the US since 2015, so I think many Gen Z take this for granted. Some of the younger generation don't recognize that this was a hard-fought right that many people around the world don't have. Sophie says in France it's legal, and I think it's important to give everyone the same rights. Marriage is a personal matter between 2 people who love each other, and everyone should be able to live their lives together peacefully, no matter what their religion, gender, or origin is. Leon says same-sex marriage is currently not legal in Singapore. The country's legal framework defines marriage as a union between a man and a woman. However, millennials and Gen Z in Singapore are generally more accepting of same-sex relationships. Right, so we've taken a look at our viewers' comments. For a more in-depth discussion on the topic now, we're going to invite a Gen Zer from a country that legally recognizes same-sex marriage to our talks right after this break. Right, so today we're joined by Tsai Wu, a Taiwanese Gen Z. Welcome, Tsai, to the show.
Hello.
Great to have you back, Tsai. So our first question for you today is, your country, Taiwan, as our panelists mentioned earlier in the discussion, became the first country in Asia to actually legalize same-sex marriage in 2019. So could you tell us what was the process or journey like?
The legalization of same-sex marriage in Taiwan was first initiated by one person. In May 2015, Cha Wei-chi submitted a request for constitutional interpretation to the Grand Justice, arguing that the marriage chapter of the family section of the civil law at the time didn't allow 2 people of the same sex to form a marriage relationship. He claimed that this violated the fundamental human rights protected by the Constitution. After the announcement of the interpretation number 748 in May 2017, the Grand Justice confirmed that civil law was unconstitutional. As a result, they required the legislature to amend the relevant laws within 2 years from the date of the interpretation's announcement. And during this period, Taiwan underwent a same-sex marriage referendum. Then, after the announcement of the Act for Implementation of Interpretation number 748 on May 22, 2019, that Taiwan officially ensured the right for two people of the same sex to establish a marriage relationship, making Taiwan the first country in Asia to legalize same-sex marriage in 2019.
You know, I think it's so impressive that Taiwan is the first Asian country to legalize same-gender marriage. How do you and the younger generation around you perceive the same-sex couples or marriages?
I think that there's a paper discusses the preferences of Taiwanese people regarding the regulation of same-sex marriage from National Taiwan Normal University. And when observing the support and opposition ratios among the young, middle-aged, and elderly generations, it is found that around 63.4% of the young generation support the civil law approach to protect same-sex marriage. And from observation, it can be inferred that the majority of the young generation supports the civil law amendment approach to protect same-sex marriage. However, the middle-aged and elderly generations hold more conservative attitudes. So I think the young generation tends to support both the legalization of same-sex marriage and its protection through the civil law, in contrast to the more conservative views of the middle-aged and elderly generations on these two issues.
Okay, so I think this kind of generational gap is also same here in Korea. Then what are your thoughts on the recent Korean Supreme Court ruling that allows same-sex couples to qualify for dependent spousal coverage under the National Health Insurance?
I think this represents a significant step forward in protecting the rights of same-sex partners in South Korea, and this ruling will likely prompt the South Korean government and legislative bodies to review and amend relevant laws and ensure more comprehensive protection for same-sex partners. And the ruling reflects a growing acceptance of gender and sexual orientation diversity in South Korean society and could drive broader social change. And lastly, the South Korean Supreme Court's ruling marks an important step in the protection of the same-sex partner rights. It not only has significant implications for the partners themselves, but also positively influences the legal and cultural development in South Korea.
Great. All right, Tayu, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, so I'd like to ask the same question to our panelists really briefly. How did you or your peers, that is the younger generation, react to the Korean Supreme Court's decision?
You know, I think it's no question that our younger generation or the MZers are much more favorable when it comes to legislation such as this, because one of the characteristics is that we're more favorable or more active when it comes to human rights issues.
Right.
So in a survey conducted last year, as our interviewer mentioned, it was exactly the same. Those in the 20s and 30s, more than half of the respondents were very favorable towards the legislation. But of course, as you go up in the age gap, the favorability sort of decreases because of the conservative society or the lack of experience, as we discussed prior to the show.
Right, so the younger generation seems to be more open or accepting to same-sex couples or same-sex marriage. Now, Sang, I want to also ask you, do you also feel that the Korean society's perceptions towards same-sex marriage or couples is changing?
Yeah, I think it's about time that we should change. I have been seeing some media portraying the LGBTQs. First, we have the Mr. Hong Seok-chan, who was the first celebrity to actually come out of the closet. And also recently, we have many gay or lesbian YouTubers that upload contents of the life of the homosexuals. And recently, I also came across a dating TV show the other day, and it was for gay men to match their partners.
Right.
So these examples, I think it showed that Korean society is slowly opening up the doors to the LGBTQ people.
We're definitely seeing a lot of changes in the media and in the entertainment landscape as well. Now, as we mentioned earlier, this ruling has gotten significant attention both domestically and internationally because many view it as a first step or possibly paving the way towards Korea legalizing same-sex marriage. So I want to ask you, last but not least, do you think this will happen soon?
You know, I think that is a very tough question.
It is actually.
My personal hope is that we're moving forward in the direction that is more favorable to preserve and protect the rights of everyone, regardless of their sexual preference. However, as we know from history, even it took some time for the United States to legalize same-gender marriage. So I do hope that before the legalization happens, I hope the social perspective changes so that there's less hatred and less discrimination among the people, which can start the movement towards legalization.
Right, because all sort of discrimination and prejudice, it's wrong.
Yes.
And do you also agree with this, Sang-yo?
Definitely. So I do agree that the change will be made slowly, but in a matter of time, because MZers are rather more favorable to the LGBTQ rights. I think in the long future, in the long run, I think Korea will open its door to the LGBTQ rights, and for that, I think we need both legal and social contribution. We still have more laws to be amended, and also the prejudice against the gay and lesbian should also change.
Right, and we'll bring you the updates and changes here on NewsGen as we move on. And that's all from us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks today to Jessica Dainho.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
And Im Sang-yo.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you everyone for watching. And before we said goodbye, Arirang TV is conducting a program survey including NewsGen in order to meet our viewers' expectations until August 4th. So please participate through our official website or mobile app Arirang TV. Thank you everyone for watching once again, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.